McDonald.
Ceann Comhairle. There are three extraordinary facts at the heart of this fiasco. Number one is the extraordinary achievement of delivering what will be, we are advised, the world's most expensive hospital ever, at an overrun to the taxpayer, because it's taxpayers' euros, of 450 million. Extraordinary stuff. It is secondly extraordinary to hear you again, Taoiseach, try to justify or to explain away this fiasco, as if to suggest to the taxpayer that actually it's not such a big deal after all. 450 million euros of taxpayers' money in an overspend. But perhaps what is the most extraordinary in this scenario is to hear your coalition partner, Micheál Martin, extol the extraordinariness of the situation and then resolve to back you and to back your incompetent Minister for Health, Simon Harris. Truly extraordinary stuff. It's extraordinary that the Taoiseach and other members of government choose to label efforts to seek accountability as stunts. It's extraordinary that the Cabinet and Government are so arrogant at this stage that they defy the prerogative and the duty of the opposition to hold you to account, because that is a democratic imperative. It is essential. It's essential because of this hospital overrun, but it would be necessary in any event because the Minister for Health's record is frankly shambolic. Because whatever you may think, Taoiseach, or whatever your friend Deputy Martin might suggest, we have a crisis in the health service. And it's crystal clear at this juncture that the Minister for Health is incapable of resolving it. In fact, it has become apparent that he's part of the problem, not part of the solution. We've the worst waiting lists across Europe. Last month, more than 10,000 patients were on hospital trolleys. Last year was the worst year on record in a perpetual trolley crisis that nobody seems to be accountable for. It is a farce. We had nurses, we had midwives on picket lines, totally avoidable, but for the overbearing arrogance of your government and your minister, who would only at the 11th hour engage respectfully with our nurses and midwives. And then, of course, we have the small matter of 450 million euro of taxpayers' money.
Thank you, Deputy.
Fianna Fáil might be prepared to sit on their hands. We won't. The anger around all of this debacle is very real and it won't go away. I understand that the Minister proposes to make a brief statement after leaders' questions, with no facility for questions or answers, no facility for any form of even the most basic accountability. So I want to suggest to you, Taoiseach, that rather than facilitating this fiasco any further, you should do the right thing and you should relieve Simon Harris of his duties.
Taoiseach.
Thank you very much, Deputy, for your question. Ceann Comhairle, I have to say I'm heartened by the newfound interest by Sinn Féin in taxpayers' money. This is the party that regularly, before budget every year, proposes 2 to 3 billion euros in extra taxes to be imposed on workers and on businesses. An extra 2.3 billion every year. Not 400 million spread over 3 or 4 years, an extra 2,000 million every year they want to impose on taxpayers and on businesses in the form of tax increases. Sinn Féin is no friend of the taxpayer. Let nobody in this chamber have any doubt about that. In my view, Ceann Comhairle, accountability is about accepting responsibility for your decisions and your actions, and perhaps in some cases your inactions. And Minister Harris and the government, and I as head of government, accept responsibility for underestimating the cost of this particular project. Accountability isn't about giving in to the baying mob, it isn't about witch hunts, and it isn't about the almost weekly demand for a head, any head, somebody's head, who's next. That is not accountability in my view, Ceann Comhairle. And we shouldn't forget the value and the benefits of this project, not just to taxpayers, but to our children, 25% of our population, and not just them, their children and their children's children. This will be a state-of-the-art children's hospital. Not the most expensive hospital in the world, but certainly one of the best in the world. A truly national facility, born digital, connected to paediatric units in hospitals all over the country. 380 single rooms with infection control, place for parents to stay overnight. A 60-bed ICU block. 22 theatres where we have 14 now. 5 MRI machines and room for 2 more where we only have 2. 20 ultrasound rooms. Academic centres, parent accommodation, research centres. This is truly a project of enormous value. And yes, government and its agencies underestimated the cost of this project. We got that wrong. It's going to cost more than we thought it would cost. But there is absolutely nobody who is saying that they can do it any cheaper or any faster. So we've taken the decision to go ahead with it, to deliver it and build it, and we shall.
Taoiseach Deputy McDonald.
So, can I, just so that I have the record of the Dáil straight, it is the most expensive hospital per bed. I reckon that still makes it the most expensive hospital, but I won't quibble with you over that. You see, it's not just that there was a miscalculation of the costs. That happened for sure, and there are governance issues that percolate all the way down through the board that the Minister reappointed in July of last year. And no doubt we will uncover the individual actions, inactions, the bad calls that were made. But it's not just that, and you know that. The Minister had information that we are advised he didn't share with his Cabinet colleagues. The Minister had information that we are advised he didn't share with his colleagues in government in Fianna Fáil. In fact, Fianna Fáil had extensive pre-budget negotiations, a very, very long process in reviewing the confidence supply arrangement, in which we were told there was an in-depth review of every government department.
Thank you, Deputy.
And yet they weren't informed of this, or they missed it. So this is not simply about incompetence and bad management, which you've demonstrated before. It's also then about concealing or failure to reveal the full facts.
You're over time, Deputy, now, please.
Ceann Comhairle, the facts are these: whatever the mood on the government benches, the people do not accept, in my view, that an apology from Simon Harris is sufficient, and will not tolerate a government that is an apologist for bad governance, rather than one that's prepared to face real accountability.
Thank you, Deputy. Taoiseach.
Thanks very much, Ceann Comhairle. This morning, Cabinet decided to reprofile about 100 million in expenditure and infrastructure. It is important to put that into context. The budget for this year for infrastructure is €7,000 million. That's an increase of €1,500 million last year. So we're reprofiling 100 million of a €1,500 million increase. It does not affect or change the budget ceilings that this Parliament agreed back in October. The details, as many people know by now, is that the largest single deferral, which is of course not a deferral in reality, is the €27 million that we had allocated to the A5 this year. That project cannot go ahead because there is no executive and no ministers in Northern Ireland, unfortunately. So that payment will not now fall due this year. But should Sinn Féin and others take up their responsibilities in government, form an executive and approve that project, we will find the money to go ahead with it this year. But as they have failed to take up their responsibilities to deliver infrastructure projects, that €27 million payment that we were to pay to the Northern Ireland Executive this year does not fall due. In addition, 10 million is being reprofiled from the National Forensic Science Lab, which is under construction, but the payment can be deferred. The Department of Education, which is contributing 10 million to the cost of a school for the new Children's Hospital, are willing to bring forward that payment to this year. And when it comes to the funds for Project Ireland 2040, the next drawdown and announcement of those funds, as I imagine members opposite will not be sad to hear, will be deferred by a number of weeks. There are other changes then in relation to between 2 and 4 million other departments and 24 million in health. I can confirm, however, that no projects are being cancelled, and whatever scaremongering may be happening around the country about projects being cancelled because of Children's Hospital, I confirm that is not the case.
Deputy Michael Lowry, please.